There is perhaps no hotel more famous in the UK than the Ritz London. It has stood for nearly 120 years as the most ostentatious way to spend a night in the city, often visited by dignitaries, celebrities, and now people who definitely don't belong there, like me. That's right, today I'm checking into this very special, but also very expensive hotel to see what it's really like and find out through all of the hype if it's actually worth the money. So this hotel was opened back in 1906 by Caesar Ritz, a Swiss hotelier who had already established the Ritz Paris, another iconic hotel today. Now, this is not to be confused with the current Ritz-Carlton hotel brand, which is owned by Marriott, even though the name does indeed come from Caesar Ritz, as it was brought to America in 1911 under the combination of his name and the Carlton Hotel, which was also founded in London. Anyways, the Ritz London would stand as one of the most famous luxury hotels in the UK, hosting the rich and famous for decades. Through this time, the ownership of the hotel would mostly stay private, sold only 3 different times through its existence, and through that time, it's retained much of its original elegance and interior finishes. A bit of an outlier in that sense, and it's one of the only hotels in London which still adhere to a strict dress code system that leans into the elegance of a bygone era. Following a multi-year renovation through the late 90s and early 2000s, the hotel would ultimately be sold again, this time in 2020 to a Qatari businessman with ties to the royal family. The transaction marked the single highest price ever paid per door for a hotel, a total of £900 million. The property sits today along the very busy thoroughfare of Piccadilly, right on the north end corner of Green Park, which connects to Buckingham Palace. Of course, the Ritz London itself is a beautiful Franco-American structure, a real gem among the rather modest modern and historic structures around it. Though truthfully, everywhere here is quite beautiful, and since it is in Mayfair, much of the shopping and dining is quite high-end. So during our trip here to London, I figured I should see what all the hype is about and find out if one of the most famous ultra-luxury hotels in the world is any good. As I have been doing a lot lately, I booked through a travel agent, and with their preferred rates and perks, I ended up getting a resort credit worth £80, late checkout and early check-in, full breakfast for 2, and an upgrade upon check-in. Though I'm pretty sure I didn't get it, since the front desk seemed a little confused as to what I was talking about when I asked. Regardless, this is what we were given: a superior king room on the 2nd floor, and I must say, first impressions were quite impressive. This is a beautifully classic room, seemingly untouched from when it was first built nearly 120 years ago. The decently sized space, around 260 square feet, is rather lavishly decorated with cream interiors, vintage furniture, crystal chandeliers, and gold trim accents. The Ritz calls the decor found in these rooms inspired by Louis XVI. While it is all very pretty to look at, there is a lot of practicality here too. As you first enter the room, you have a desk off to the right, as well as a plush chair next to the marble fireplace. While it's no longer operational, it does have a live orchid on the mantle, along with a portrait of Caesar Ritz. Over the window, you'll find 3 other places to sit, as well as another table where you'll also find complimentary bottled water, as well as a full chocolate bar, which is a nice touch. Our view wasn't anything special since the building across the street was so close. We were looking down at Piccadilly Street, which was cool, and while these windows at one point did open up to become a Juliet balcony, that is no longer the case. The busy street noise was well subdued by the glass, and the room is quiet. The bed itself is nice. It's a king size with comfortable linens and a medium firm mattress, which I thought was fine enough. I got a fine sleep apart from the air conditioning blowing right onto my face while in bed. I actually had to put a robe over it to redirect the air up, which, yeah, was kind of annoying. Hidden behind 2 doors at either side of the room is a closet with the room's only full-length mirror. Although the door can't open all the way due to the placement of the bedside table, which is quite problematic given the dress code requirement throughout the hotel. The other side has some more storage space and a few other amenities like a Dyson hairdryer and some glasses. Though again, rather annoyingly for the price point, there's no refrigerator or any complimentary teas or coffees on hand. If you want a coffee or tea, you're gonna have to pay for it. Now over in the foyer, you have the entrance to the bathroom. Just like the bedroom, this space is spotless. The fixtures and ceramics shine in the light, while you also get a heated towel rack and some nice marble cladding throughout. Overall though, the bathroom is pretty small, and this is kind of where my disappointment turns into frustration at this price point. The night before we stayed here, I stayed in a regular Marriott on points to save money. I wasn't really expecting much from a regular Marriott in downtown London, but I was surprised to find that both the bed and especially the bathroom were much nicer in that room than here at the Ritz. Not only did that room have heated floors and a spacious stand-up shower, neither of which are present here, but the Ritz room lacks aspects you would figure would be a guarantee luxury, like nice robes, which don't even meet expectations for this price point. It's a sad world when Disney's Grand Floridian Resort has better robes than the Ritz London. That compounded on top of a slippery bath shower combo with a stupid half-glass partition just made this whole space feel like a higher-end premium hotel bathroom rather than an ultra-luxurious one it's claiming to be. Even the bath products from Asprey are nice enough, but that was the brand Ritz-Carlton used to use until they switched to Diptyque for a more upgraded experience. And these admittedly small problems just popped up here and there across the whole space. When we first got to the room, there was an issue with the air conditioning, as it was blowing air that was mildly cold at best. The room was pretty warm, so we went down to concierge and they fixed the problem when we asked. But even when it was blowing cool air, it kind of smelt a bit musty. Our room also, of course, came with a TV, but its system likely hasn't been updated in years, with an overall UI experience that I wouldn't call industry standard, at least for this level of hotel. And that's kind of the feeling you get across the room. Aside from the historical design of the space, which may give you the sense of opulence of an ultra-luxury 5-star hotel, all of the details feel like they're from a luxury property from like 2014. And while most of these problems are nitpicks, for the price point, the details here are simply just not at the same level as the admittedly fancy facades and overall perceived opulence. But what about the rest of the hotel? Well, before we take a look at the amenities here, I want to first let you know about this video's sponsor, Babbel. I've been using Babbel for a while now on and off, and that's because Babbel is the best place to learn a new language. It's one of the premier language learning apps, with lessons designed by real language teachers. Even though English is the primary language spoken in the UK, I'm often traveling to other destinations, while also living in a country where French is the second language. So because of that, I've always been interested in learning French. Babbel has been a great resource to do just that. Babbel keeps things very approachable, as you can set your own schedule and learn through practical conversations you would actually use. Personally, I felt that it's been very engaging and an overall pleasant experience. So if you want to try Babbel out today, you can click my link or scan the QR code on the screen to get 60% off your Babbel subscription. Merci beaucoup to Babbel for making this video possible. Alright, so amenities. What do we have here? Well, despite the structure's sheer size and footprint, there are just 136 rooms on property, so I wasn't expecting a huge amount in terms of amenities. But I was expecting the basics for a property like this. On paper, the Ritz London only has a few venues within its perfectly presented exterior, only one of those spaces being exclusive for paying guests. When you first walk in, you're greeted with a gorgeous lobby area with the main reception and concierge desks spaced around a 3-story rotunda. Further on, you'll find the beautifully ornate hallway, known as the Grand Gallery. It connects most of the hotel's amenities, like the Rivoli Bar, a very classically stylish and intimate bar in the evenings, and where Emmy and I grabbed some drinks to use our resort credit. The space was really nice, though from my perception, perhaps leaning slightly on the stuffy, pretentious side, with drinks that are obviously outrageously expensive. I got a fig and whiskey drink, which was really good, but it was pretty small and also 27 pounds. Emmy's drink, the Jupiter, however, was quite the experience, arriving in a miniature fountain used to dispense part of the cocktail. Although, even given the incredible taste and display of the cocktail, I still find it pretty hard to justify these prices. They did give us an endless supply of nuts and olives though, so there's that. Now across the hall is the Palm Court, where the hotel offers afternoon tea. This is the experience most often attributed to the hotel, as it is quite popular. The Palm Court itself is very beautiful, and with live music and a dress code, this is a pretty special place to have afternoon tea. However, also an expensive one, as prices start at around £81 per person. Apparently, there is quite a waitlist too, and most reviews claim it's pretty great, but expensive. Likewise was the dining room at the end of the Royal Gallery, called the Ritz Restaurant. This is a 2 Michelin star restaurant and has pretty rave reviews. Menus come in a few different forms, from an a la carte with single main dishes like the wild sea bass starting at around £64, all the way up to a 7-course experience menu starting at £221 per person. Once again, we cheaped out and ended up going to a church converted to a food hall called Mercado Mayfair. Our dinner there was pretty great, honestly, and I highly recommend it. It certainly wasn't Michelin quality food or anything, but it also wasn't Michelin prices either. Now, the Ritz restaurant is also very beautiful, and the following morning we ate breakfast there as it was included with our stay. Everything here was top-notch, from the tea service and juice to the actual main plates. I opted for pancakes, and Emmy got the traditional English breakfast. Both were fantastic and fresh, prioritizing locally farmed foods. Really like to see it. Unfortunately though, outside of eating and drinking, there really isn't much else here at the Ritz. There are some chairs and tables along the Royal Gallery, which kind of act as a lounging area, as well as some displays with expensive jewelry, though there's no actual store. Around the front, there is a cigar shop and the now vacant space which used to be the Ritz Club, a small casino which failed to reopen following the COVID lockdown. What else is there? There's a very small fitness area on the top floor. Though if you showed me it in isolation, I likely wouldn't think it's from one of the most expensive hotels in London. This is the only guest-specific amenity on offer, as there is no spa, pool, or even some amenities you might expect at a high-end hotel, like a complimentary butler service or even a house car, both of which are on offer, but you need to pay extra for. Now finally, there was the Ritz Garden, the only outdoor space available to guests. That is no longer the case, as this space is now seemingly closed permanently and will be occupied by the Ritz's ongoing expansion. Oh yeah, did I mention the building was under pretty heavy construction during our stay? Despite never being told when booking, nor it being listed anywhere on the website, the hotel is currently in the midst of a massive expansion and renovation. This is being done in part to answer some of those criticisms that I have, as the current plan is to invest over £300 million to both expand the space, presumably with more rooms, but also to dig a massive basement for both parking and a full spa facility, including a 2-story pool. The main floor amenities will also see a change, from the expansion of the Rivoli bar to the introduction of a bunch of new interior and exterior spaces, all of which will be a welcome addition to the property. For example, on the ground floor, this is the current space that's on offer, and according to submitted floor plans, this is the new ground floor space. In fairness though, during our stay, none of the public areas had been closed apart from that outdoor patio, and truthfully, the construction impacted very little of our stay apart from the exterior aesthetics of the roof and expansion points, which were very clearly underway. Despite these plans being introduced all the way back in 2021, the renovations aren't expected to be complete until 2028, with a full hotel shutdown expected for sometime in 2026. So you then might be asking me, well, what's the point of bringing up all this criticism if it's all going to be fixed by the later half of this decade? Well, since they're continuing to sell rooms at the prices they do, clearly the thought is that the current offerings live up to that price point. But let's talk about that price point, and specifically how much our room costs. We stayed here in June, so pretty close to peak prices during the warmer months, even though it was cold and rainy during our stay. Regardless, the cost for our Superior King room for one night was £960, which is around $1,300 USD. That is extremely expensive. It's the most expensive hotel room I've ever stayed in, an eye-watering amount of money for a single night. Though I will say, it is only $70 more expensive than the Four Seasons Orlando. I'm not sure what that says, but it says something. According to their website, the lowest category room, a Superior Queen room, starts at around £725, though I personally haven't been able to replicate that through their own booking system. Our room apparently starts at around £840 a night, whereas a Deluxe King can start at around £1,065 a night. A step above that is a Junior Suite, which starts at around £1,645, then an Executive Suite at £2,580. Getting even more lavish are the Deluxe Suites at £3,370, and then the Signature Green Park Suite at 1,200 square feet, which starts at an insane £8,395 a night. All of this is just a ton of money for a single night at a hotel, and putting it at that price point puts the expectations at a really high bar. Those expectations are also pretty high when you look at other luxury hotels in London. Now granted, even at the most luxurious properties, their base rooms tend to be pretty underwhelming. The Ritz certainly has the most interesting base rooms in all of the 5-star category hotels that I can find. Though it's not like a lot of the other hotels don't have a lot going for them. The brand new Raffles, for example, has a stunning property with tons of history to it, arguably more so than the Ritz. Plus, it has luxurious, modern, yet modest base rooms, a stunning spa facility, and a whole lot more than the Ritz currently offers. Their rooms can be had as low as £798 a night. Really, there's a lot of luxury hotels in London, and for the price that you pay at the Ritz, well, you can go pretty far on that budget, especially if you're willing to stay outside of Mayfair. Most hotels, you can get a suite for that price. But let's actually break all of this down and give it a Jake's Isn't Any Good score. It's based on 5 categories, each out of 10, for a potential perfect score of 50 out of 50. We'll start with the location, and given that this is in Mayfair, one of the most sought-after areas of the city, and that it's right across the street from the Green Park tube stop, this is a pretty great location. You really can't get much better than this, and it's a 10 out of 10. Amenities, however, are not so great. For the prestige and price point of this hotel, you'd think there would be a whole lot more on offer to guests other than just a bar and a restaurant. Now I know this is a historic hotel and changes are coming, but that's not stopping them from charging their high prices, and I think it's a 4 out of 10. Luxury is good, but honestly a bit disappointing. Again, I understand it's a historical property, but at this price point, I think it's fair to expect the very best. And I'm not so sure that was totally delivered upon with every aspect of the experience, especially in the room. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Service, however, is truly a bright spot. Everyone is extremely attentive, genuinely nice, and genuinely makes you feel welcome, especially the team at the front door. It's a 10 out of 10. And then there's value. In the end, this is my own subjective opinion, so take with that what it is. I'm sure that most people that stay here are completely satisfied with everything. I can't say I'm one of them though, and as the most expensive hotel that I've ever stayed in, I can say that it was a really good experience, but not necessarily the type of hotel I would say actually lives up to the price point. I don't fully see the value proposition for those who actually care about what they spend their money on. For me, it's a 4 out of 10. That brings the total score to 35 out of 50. A decent, but not great score for a hotel I had much higher hopes of. That also puts it on par with Cliveden House, another luxury hotel that is also an estate just outside of London. But despite the same score, I would definitely choose Cliveden over this. So those are my thoughts on the Ritz. Just to be clear with all of this, I completely acknowledge that these are extreme first world problems, and the very fact I get to complain about all this stuff is very privileged. But this is also kind of the perfect example of why I started this channel. Even though most of the problems I found here are nitpicks, and probably ones I wouldn't normally think twice about, the truth is that we live in a world where high prices have been so normalized that they very commonly outweigh consumer benefits. And as a person and channel that stands very firmly in my belief to point out those inconsistencies, in the spirit of honesty, I think they need to be brought to light. I'm of course very thankful to have been able to be put in this position to make this video, but I also think that some of the splendor and hype built up around this property is more around the exclusivity rather than its actual value. A lot of the perceived value here seems to be based on the idea of what the Ritz represents, and not the actual execution of the product itself. And let's be honest, at this price point, it would be very hard to actually meet my expectations. For something this expensive, you should expect and receive the very best. But in the end, I was left more disappointed than anything else. I'm sure that by the end of the decade, the Ritz will actually turn into a very competitive, all-encompassing luxury experience. But I also have a feeling that its already insane price tag will only continue to go up by then. But what do you think? Have I been too harsh with London's most iconic hotel, or do you agree with my takes? Let me know in the comments below, and of course, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Thanks again to Babbel for helping make this very expensive video possible. My name is Jake, and thank you very much for watching.